Okay. Thanks, Kristen. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular planning meeting for Tuesday, January 21st, 2025, and we're being streamed live. I'm going to call to order the meeting with the land acknowledgement. We are meeting today on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. We acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within. We honor their cultures and celebrate their commitment to this land. We would also like to acknowledge the Mohawk and Algonquin nations whose traditional and unceded territory we are gathered upon today. Hastings County is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. I need a motion to approve the agenda for the planning meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Marmorn Lake for Tuesday, January 21st at 2025. Eric, and second Mike. Any discussion on the agenda? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Being none. Next, I need a motion for the foregoing minutes of the planning meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Marmorn Lake held Tuesday, November the 19th, 2025 be approved as presented. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Jane, and second, Ron. Any discussion on those minutes? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Next, the public meeting. This is the time set aside to permit anyone in attendance to speak in favor or in opposition to the zoning amendments. Public input will be received by council. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the municipal council for the municipality of Marmorn Lake to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of Marmorn Lake before the bylaws pass, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make a written submission to the municipal council for the municipality of Marmorn Lake before the bylaws pass, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So the first proposed zoning bylaw amendment is for 254 Bronson Road, Marmorn Lake. The subject lands are presently zoned marginal agricultural. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the severed lands of consent to sever application number B124 from the marginal agricultural zone to the rural residential zone to fulfill condition number 8 of the consent application. And the next one is the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for Marble Point Road, Marmorn Lake. And the subject lands are presently zoned marginal agricultural. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the severed lands to consent to sever application number B71/24 and B72/24 from the marginal agricultural zone to the rural residential zone to fill condition number 8 of the consent applications. So at this point, is there anyone here that wishes to speak to either one of these applications? For or against? Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to either of these applications that are before us for zoning bylaw amendments for Bronson Road and Marble Point Road? I'm sorry. Can you, sir, just a minute, we'll get you to put the talk into the microphone and.
Yeah, my name is John Lawson. I have the next slot to where you're building. And my concern is how are you going to get to the water? One, secondly, and the wells. If you put a subdivision in there and if you just go over the wells, we'll be dead. We'll have to go to buy water. And I don't think that's right. I've owned that property since '88. And now you've got people are moving in. I've nothing against your building. My concern is the water.
Okay, Mr. Lawson, we have Emily Galloway from the county on the screen, and she's listening to what you're saying. Emily, can you respond to that concern?
Of course, Madam Chair. Hi, Mr. Lawson. I believe we spoke on the phone sometime last week about this. So this is a condition of severance. So the applicants at this point are just proposing to sever 2 new lots. The rezoning is one of the conditions that are part of the severance process. So they're not approved yet. But water was reviewed as part of that severance process, and the applicants do need to complete something called a hydrogeological study for the 2 new lots they're proposing. So that's going to be completed by a professional hydrologist or engineer, and they review well records, so including your well. They review location of septic, they review a lot of details about the hydrology in the area. It's a very detailed report. That report will also be peer reviewed by the county's peer reviewer. So there's going to be 2 hydrologists that look at it, both the preparer and the county's peer reviewer. So that is a separate condition of consent. But the rezoning application impacts the uses of the property. So we don't want people to have farm uses on small 1 acre, 2 acre lots. So that's why it's being rezoned to rural residential. But your concerns about water will be addressed separately. So my best advice is if the applicant's consultant knocks on your door and asks to look at your well, it's always a good idea to let them do that because that means it can be included as part of their study.
Okay, thanks, Emily.
Of course.
Helpful, Mr. Lawson?
I can hardly.
If I may, so just first of all, with the property, which one is your property? Do you have an address or just a lot number for that?
Yeah, you know the walkway is
Yes,
right there.
right next to that. Okay. So what Emily is saying, that under the planning process, so the rezoning is that the way it's now zoned marginal agriculture. You couldn't be able to build what you're wanting to unless it changes to rural residential. That's the RR zone. But the indication there is that so there's one with the rezoning and then the severance itself. The severance wouldn't be permitted, development would not be permitted, and it wouldn't be allowed to interfere with your water, your potable water. So there's a couple studies that are being done. In support of the application, there would be a hydrogeology study that would be completed. Part of that would then be submitted to the county. The county has a peer reviewer, so another consultant outside of the county who would look at that, look at the science and say, again, this isn't going to interfere. So one, can the property support a well and a septic? And also in doing so, can't interfere with your ability or any other neighbor with respect to any existing well or any septic. So the idea is that that's a separate process, but your concern will be certainly noted, but also now the county is aware and will take that into consideration. And all of that would be a condition of approval. In other words, unless they could satisfy that condition, that severance will not be permitted and the idea of development wouldn't be permitted. Not allowed to interfere with your ability to have a well and your septic. Otherwise, there would have to be remediation or something happen. Does that help at all, or is
It helps some, as long as we're informed. I'm concerned because I'm really, I moved from Toronto.
Yep.
Up here to be solitude. I bought that property because nobody will build beside me. It's all rock. And now
I know, and it does change, and absolutely I can understand that, Mr. Lawson. I think the idea there is that again, as these things go forward, and part of this being a public meeting is to absolutely give you the information and any concern that's there. So as it goes forward, you'll be included, you'll get that information because you have the property right next door. And there's always the opportunity, if you're not happy with the decision at the end of the day, that you could appeal that. But again, the idea of this public meeting, your participation, your contributing to the conversation helps with that.
But that's fine, as long as we're kept informed of, of the results. Like I say, my main concern is well water. I don't want to go onto city water because they use chlorine in it. My water is pure. So
Absolutely.
as soon as you taste, you got chlorine, and you go to Toronto, you got chlorine. I don't want it.
No, I can appreciate that.
So that's my main concern.
Absolutely. Is that it, or is there anything else you want to share with the county or council?
Pardon?
Is there any other concerns you have that you want to share
No,
with
I have
council?
nothing against, like I say, I'm not against the development at all or rezoning. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't, but
But just don't
the
interfere with
water.
your,
That's
absolutely.
that's the only concern I have.
Well, and you've made your point and the county's aware and we're aware. And so, you've been recorded as having that concern.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else wishing to speak to either one of these applications? Okay, okay. No, you need to come up here so we can all hear you.
Good day, my name is Patrick Forbes, and I live directly across the street from those two lots that we're talking about. My question is, if you change the zoning, what does that affect? Like, will it allow the other lots eventually to have different rights, different freedoms, like business, agricultural, or just strictly residential?
Can you help us with that, Emily?
Of course, through Madam Chair. So the purpose of the rezoning is to rezone those two lots that are proposed to be created through the severance process to the rural residential zone. So in Hastings County and Marmon Lake, any lot that's less than 15 acres in size is too small for agricultural uses, like farm uses, basically. So the rural residential zone is a residential zone. If you're one of the lots across the street, you probably are yourself part of the rural residential zone. So you have standard residential rights. So in terms of businesses and things, you're looking at home-based businesses, not commercial uses. So the rezoning will be for rural residential.
So the rezoning would be just so that it's residential, not business, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So just residential, and the larger parcel, the retained lands of the application will remain marginal agricultural. So nothing's changing on that front, but the two lots, because they're smaller than that 15 acres, we're asking them to be rezoned to rural residential.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
Of course.
So next on the agenda, the zoning amendment bylaw number 2025-1P, 254 Bronson Road. The legal description is part lot 24, concession 10. Excuse me. Bylaw 2025-1P would rezone the severed lands of consent to sever application number B1/24 from the marginal agricultural zone to the rural residential zone to fulfill condition number 8 of the consent application. And the recommendation is that the County of Hastings Planning Staff Report dated December 4th, 2024, regarding rezoning of lands legally described as Part Lot 24, Concession 10 be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment 2025-1P regarding the rezoning of lands legally described as Part Lot 24, Concession 10 be recommended for council adoption. So can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Eric and Ron, any further discussion by council? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next, the zoning amendment bylaw number 2025-2P, Marble Point Road. Legal description, part of Lot 8, Concession 4, Parts 3 to 6 of Plan 21R 4763. Bylaw 2025-2P would rezone the severed lands to consent to sever applications numbers B71/24 and B72/24 from the marginal agricultural zone to the rural residential zone to fulfill condition number 8 of the consent applications. And the recommendation is that the County of Hastings Planning Staff Report dated December 17th, 2024 regarding rezoning of lands legally described as part of Lot 8, Concession 4, Parts 3 to 6 of Plan 21R 4763 be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment 2025-02P regarding the rezoning of lands legally described as part of Lot 8, Concession 4, Parts 3 to 6 of Plan 21R 4763 be recommended for council adoption. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Eric, second. Ron, any further discussion? Did you want to speak, Mike?
I noticed on the application that Crow Valley had not an objection, but they want to do a peer review of the karst study that's going to be done on this. And also there's a restricted land use to the location of our municipal water supply. And I think those are conditions, and Kristen explained it to me. So Emily, can you explain how these will come into play after this happens, please?
Of course. So again, through Madam Chair. So Crow Valley is recommending deferrals, so council has that option. Personally, I don't believe deferral is necessary in this case because those are the things they highlighted, like the peer review of the karst study submitted with the application. Those are conditions of approval for the consent. So the consent has received provisional approval, meaning that the application is currently going through the condition process. So rezoning is one of those conditions. And again, peer review is one of those conditions, and hydro-G is one of those conditions. The results of that hydro-G or hydrogeological study would be registered on title. Same with the results of the karst study and the karst peer review are all going to be registered on title. And that will alleviate the concerns of Crow Valley. It's just as their stance as a conservation authority, they have a little different approach than a planner would. For me, because the lots are not being technically created by this process, this is one of, I believe, 13 steps in their entire process, that I don't have a concern with the application being approved, but council could consider deferral based on the comments provided by Crow Valley.
Thanks, Emily.
Okay,
Welcome.
thanks.
Hey, Mike?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome. Always happy to help.
Consent file, next to planning reports. Consent file B 141 24/24 Jennison Road, Lot 37, Concession 10, Unregistered Compiled Plan 1973, Municipality of Marmon Lake. And the recommendation is that the Planning Committee receive and approve the planning staff report dated December 31st, 2024. Number 2, that all taxes be paid in full prior to granting consent. 3, that road widening is requested for the entire frontage of the subject and both benefiting lands as deemed necessary by the manager of transportation services. And 4, that the subject and both benefiting lands be rezoned from waterfront residential to waterfront residential exception number X. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Jane, second. Mike, any discussion on that consent file? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Bylaws, bylaw number 2025-1P, zoning amendment for 254 Bronson Road, being a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2003-11 as amended. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Eric, second. Mike, any further discussion on that bylaw? All in favor? That's carried. Next, bylaw number 2025-02P, zoning amendment for Marble Point Road, being a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2003-11 as amended. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Ron, second. Eric, any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Next is the confirming bylaw 2025-4P, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the planning meeting of the council held on the 21st day of January 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Jane and Eric, any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Need a motion to adjourn, Ron. Second. Dave. The meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you very much.